Thank you for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News. This week, I'm Maya Trabulsi. And this week, the challenge of finding a new home. Meet families worried they might not have a place to go as eviction protections end while rent prices surge. Expanding local streets, the city claims it has aggressive climate goals, so why is more space being given to cars? And a San Diego origin story. Meet the local director who went from being a wedding photographer to creating the latest superhero blockbuster. We start with a weekend of reflection around the world and here in San Diego. Saturday marks 20 years since the 9/11 attacks. There are countless stories to tell from that day, including those from two San Diego firefighters who answered the call to help. KPBS reporter John Carroll caught up with them and brings us their story.
The images from that day are seared into our consciousness. The attacks at the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, a plane slamming directly into the Pentagon, another meant for the U.S. Capitol, forced off course by a group of passengers and going down into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But for some San Diegans, the memories from that day are more than images. They saw the devastation firsthand once they arrived in Manhattan to help.
I was a member of the Urban Search and Rescue Team, California Task Force 8.
I was on the Urban Search and Rescue Team.
John Wood and Matt Nilsson, today an assistant chief and battalion chief. Back then, San Diego firefighters. We interviewed Chief Wood in front of Fire Station 21 in Pacific Beach, where a beautiful memorial stands to those who gave everything on that day. The Twin Towers replicated, along with a piece of steel from the real towers. Chief Wood shared these pictures of what it was like for him and all the rescue workers at Ground Zero. Days after the attack, thick dust and smoke still heavy in the air. Those of us of a certain age or older share a common experience when it comes to 9/11. We all remember where we were, what we were doing when news of the attack came. I was living and working in Los Angeles when a friend called and said, "It's Armageddon." Maybe not Armageddon, but a life-changing experience for the San Diego firefighters who were there the next day to help.
I was at my home in Rancho Penasquitos and having two little babies at home, and then my wife and educator, Shelby, was at work. I had laid down because I learned to sleep when the babies sleep, and she called me and said, "Hey, put the news on real quick." So I know everybody does remember those. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Matt Nilsson was out for a morning jog. Back then, there was no cell phone coverage where he was running.
As soon as I got back into cell coverage, because I was down on the beaches west of the Sunset Cliffs, and I got back and my wife had called and explained to me what was going on. And then I finished my jog and got back home, was watching the news.
Winston, hold on just a moment. We've got an explosion inside.
But there was very little time to watch the news. Wood says within a half hour of seeing the devastation unfold on TV, he was packing his bags.
We were, packing up and getting ready to go, getting down to our rescue warehouse and getting ready to take 80 members to there, be ready within 4 hours.
Matt Nilsson's specialty back then, as it is today, was communications. He arrived before his fellow San Diegans. He was there just hours later, that first evening of 9/11. The job of setting up equipment needed so people could communicate was urgent.
I was on a forward mission and was on top of the Western Union building the very first night that was looking directly into the pile. And I was climbing up on scaffolding and installing antennas and establishing communications for a task force.
Nilsson says he was as prepared as he could be for the sight that would greet him in New York. And though Ground Zero was a nightmarish place at that time, he's thankful his career called him to be in that place at that moment.
Everybody wanted to do something, and I was considering myself lucky because I had a mission to do. Or at least I should say, looking back, I consider myself lucky because of something that I could focus on.
Once his job setting up radio communications was complete, Nilsson joined his fellow firefighters down on the pile. There were some truly awful moments.
Recovered a lot of body parts while we were there, and the biggest thing is is the smell, right? So a lot of times we're in horrific low light conditions, but you could smell something, and so we'd bring our dogs in. People lose sight on how important closure is. If you've ever lost somebody, you want to know what happened.
Now, 20 years later, a good place to get a visceral feel for what happened is found here at the San Diego Firefighters Museum. The unspeakable loss, still difficult to comprehend after all these years. Replicas of the Twin Towers with the number 343 at the top, the number of New York firefighters lost on that day. Here are their faces. Of course, so many more people died on September 11th, 2001, more than 3,000. And the message from back then is the one hometown heroes like John Wood and Matt Nilsson still remind us of today. Never forget. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And that's just one of many special reports from KPBS News this week leading up to the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We also had a special forum on the end of the war in Afghanistan that was hosted by military reporter Steve Walsh. And you can find all of our content online at kpbs.org. With students back on campus, a schoolyard fight in East County went viral, mostly for how it was broken up. KPBS education reporter MG Perez shows us the video and has reaction from civil rights activists who say school staff crossed a line.
The video has splattered across social media since it was first captured August 31st in the outdoor lunch court at Valhalla High School. You can clearly see two students in a fight. What's not clear is why one of the white campus supervisors allegedly ended up on the ground, restraining one of the young black girls with his knee.
Putting her stomach to the ground and putting his knee to the back or near the back of her neck. Where does he get the logic that that kind of action between a school supervisor and a child is okay?
Shane Harris and other community activists are demanding answers and information from the Grossmont Union High School District. Superintendent Teresa Kemper released a video response last week acknowledging the incident on the Valhalla campus, but will not say any more until an investigation is completed.
We know the female student involved in this incident is in foster care. We also know she has not returned to school, but because of confidentiality, any other information about her is being kept private.
Her parents are the County Board of Supervisors. That's who's entrusted with this young lady's safety. That's who should be talking right now.
San Diego County Board of Supervisors Chairman Nathan Fletcher knows where the buck stops when it comes to the safety of foster children. The county has almost 2,100 children in its care right now.
If folks that are involved in any security or law enforcement situation have not learned by now, you ought never put your knee on someone's head or neck. That is a problem. And as a county, we will look into this issue rigorously and do everything we can to ensure it doesn't happen again.
These community activists will meet with the district superintendent by the end of the week, while the campus supervisor involved remains on paid leave. MG Perez, KPBS News.
The COVID-19 pandemic might not be over, but the county's tough eviction protection is gone. Some renters are already being told to start packing by their landlords. Our race and equity reporter Christina Kim met some who are being pushed out amid a housing crisis.
Frances Houston and her daughter Vanessa are packing up everything they own.
It's all packed up to leave, and I still have clothes in the closet, so we have to get more boxes, to put our things in. But that's about it. That's all we've been doing since they told us we had to move.
Last month, their new landlord said they had to leave their El Cajon apartment. It wasn't just them. Their apartment complex was sold to a new owner this summer. Shortly after, they, along with their neighbors, most of whom are immigrants or senior citizens on fixed incomes, were told their leases were being terminated to remodel the apartments. Vanessa Houston thinks there's another reason.
They can't say evict if you're doing, like Kovac or something like that, because people can sue. So what they're doing, they're saying, oh, well, let's remodel. Let's remodel and get these people out and raise the rent.
Up until mid-August, San Diego County had an eviction ban that prohibited landlords from pushing people out for reasons like remodeling. But that expired, and the statewide eviction ban's protections don't go as far. Houston currently pays $1,100 a month and can't afford to pay the $1,550 the apartment will cost after renovations. Raising rents after fixing up a place is common practice and perfectly legal, says Terry Moore, a landlord and the co-owner of ACI, a San Diego income property brokerage firm.
So for the last 40 years, the textbook solution was buy the building with the right things wrong with it. What are the right things? Well, if it's got ugly paint, if it has lousy management, has poor tenants, has poor landscaping, that's the right thing wrong with it. You fix that and you can rent it for more.
But right now, he says, things are different. After 30 years in the business, he's never seen such a high demand for apartment complexes. He says rents will continue to rise and believes building more apartment complexes will lower high costs, but not anytime soon and not in time for everyone.
Things are expensive in California and not everybody can afford to live in paradise.
Across the county in Chula Vista, more residents are being pushed out. Charles Canizales, a student, and his mother Gloria have lived in their apartment for 12 years.
I was born in this hospital right next to our house. I attended Vista Square Elementary School right in front of our door.
Like the Houstons in El Cajon, their apartment complex was sold to a new owner and they were asked to leave. Canizales says the new landlord took down their door numbers, took away their doorbells, and routinely turns off their water without proper warning. We reached out to the company Robert Stack & Associates, but they refused to comment. Canizales is worried about the toll it's taking on his parents.
My mom actually got sick. She got shingles because of the stress, and that's really what worries me the most.
The Canizales don't want to go away quietly. Instead, they joined ACE, a local tenants group, and are demanding stronger tenant protections.
¿Qué queremos? Viviendas justas. ¿Cuándo? Ahora.
Gloria Canizales wants people to join together. She says that help is out there, and it's vital that community members rely on each other during these hard times, because united, they are strong. Meanwhile, in El Cajon, the Houstons are still packing up to leave. Vanessa is her mother's primary caretaker, and her federal unemployment check ended last week.
We're paying our bills on time. We're doing everything required, but we got to leave. And now I don't know where to go.
She's worried her credit score is too low to get another apartment and fears she and her mother could end up with no place to live. And with the last of the statewide eviction protections set to expire at the end of the month, the Houstons could be the first of many displacements on the horizon. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
And that story by Christina Kim was one of our most read this week at kpbs.org. Here are some of the others. The big national story of new vaccine requirements is getting a lot of attention. It's part of President Biden's push to lower the spread of COVID-19 among the unvaccinated. On that same note, a grim milestone here in San Diego. Scripps Health, one of our largest healthcare providers, reported its highest number of single-day deaths among its patients this week. And San Diego says it wants safer streets, but it keeps widening some of its busiest roads. Here's this story from KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen.
It's a sunny afternoon, and crowds of high schoolers are hanging out at Fair at 44, a brightly decorated plaza on El Cajon Boulevard between City Heights and Talmadge. In the corner sits Ana Rivera's food truck, Jibaritos de la Isla. Its Puerto Rican and Dominican cuisine is a hit with the neighbors.
Our specialty is a plantain sandwich. It's basically 2 fried plantains, lettuce, tomato, mayo, and then your choice of steak or pork.
Business has been good for Rivera in the 5 months she's been at this location, but sometimes she fears for her customers' safety. While they sit and enjoy their food, cars zoom by on El Cajon Boulevard, one of San Diego's deadliest streets. Drivers often speed and run red lights. Rivera has seen some horrific crashes. In one of them,
the car was just totally flipped upside down. My husband had to pull the passengers out of the vehicle. There was another accident that a car, hit another car, and it ended up in the middle in the median, and the driver was ejected through the passenger door.
Given how dangerous El Cajon Boulevard is already, Rivera was shocked when she learned the city is planning on widening it further. It wants to shrink the size of the plaza and add a new right turn lane for motorists.
I thought it was a little crazy. I thought it would add to a lot to the chaos that's already here.
City traffic engineers are forcing the developer of an affordable housing project on this block to pay for the widening. It's another example of how car-centric planning has quietly continued in San Diego. That's despite pledges from city leaders to make streets safer and more pedestrian, bike, and transit-oriented. There's another example across town in Bay Park.
One thing that you notice when you start to kind of walk along Marina Boulevard is that the sidewalks are not actually complete.
Whitney Beard lives near a trolley station due to open in November. She says there aren't enough ways for pedestrians and bikes to safely access the station, so she's been organizing her neighbors to demand better.
We spent $2 billion on this trolley, and I mean, if you just kind of walk this road, it's just, there's literally no access if you're not in a car. It's very dangerous. And it's not good for the community.
During construction of the trolley station, Marina Boulevard was narrowed from 4 lanes to 2. Beard says she liked it better that way.
Traffic got a little congested for like 2 weeks. And then after that, it was pretty smooth sailing, but the traffic was much slower. So you wouldn't go above 35 miles an hour on this road when it was 1 lane each way.
But when construction ended, the road was widened again. Now drivers treat it like a freeway.
Adding an extra lane, expanding the road capacity is oftentimes the first instinct of a traffic engineer.
Colin Parent is executive director for the nonprofit think tank Circulate San Diego. He says the new goals set out in the city's climate action plan should have changed this driving first mindset. But just making a plan isn't enough.
They're not self-executing policies. The city has to have, or any city has to have, implementing policies that are representative of the values that are in those larger documents. And so for streets, that's things like complete streets plans or the road design manuals, those sorts of things. And a lot of cities, including San Diego, haven't caught up to the value statements that their elected officials have signed on to.
Back where Ana Rivera's food truck sits, the construction to further widen El Cajon Boulevard hasn't started yet. It's scheduled to begin as soon as next month. But Rivera hasn't given up hope that Mayor Todd Gloria will intervene.
It's something that we're not going to be able to reverse in the future. And I think the traffic is so bad right now. We need to be thinking more how we can reduce the traffic and reduce the speed of the cars. I think adding a lane isn't going to do that. I think adding a lane is just going to add more traffic, more cars, more accidents.
The mayor has not yet said whether he'll stop the widening, but his press secretary sent KPBS the following statement. Like other issues we've inherited from the prior administration, the city needs to look back at this project and make sure it is consistent with Mayor Gloria's goals. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It was a short work week thanks to the Labor Day holiday. Local workers deemed essential during the pandemic used the day to rally and say their needs are not being met. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has the story.
We are the union. We are the union. Mighty, mighty union. Mighty, mighty union.
It's a fight for our livelihood. It's a fight to provide for our family right now.
Workers here say they've been on the front lines of the pandemic delivering COVID vaccinations and testing, and they want CVS to fairly compensate them.
We've been in negotiations for over 5 months. We've had 27 sessions and we're not freaking done. What's the matter with them?
Todd Walters is president of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 135. They represent about 13,000 San Diego and Imperial workers. He says CVS needs to step up.
This is the age of the worker right now. They are being rewarded all over for the hard work that they do. CVS, for a company that's union, they're the most anti-union company we've worked with. They have put up such a fight over this contract. We were shocked. I'm surprised that we had to be here today doing this.
I just finished doing 2 double shifts, and it's because there's nobody out there to work. But we have to be there for our customers because we're healthcare.
CVS employees like Michael McGee are hoping the company will also make its healthcare plan more affordable.
They don't want to give us a pay raise, which keeps up with inflation. They're a healthcare company. They're one of the largest in the world. They won't give us affordable healthcare, and they won't help us on the staffing issues. So what we're saying is enough is enough. We're going to start taking this to the public.
In a statement, CVS says it has had a long relationship with UFCW 135 and are currently negotiating, hoping to soon finalize a new agreement. While some workers are rallying for better pay, some businesses are having trouble finding people to hire.
Business is going good, but just labor, that's the main thing that we're struggling right now.
Angel Mendez is the manager of Taco Kings in Del Cerro. He's hoping with extra federal unemployment assistance ending that they will be able to fill some open positions in the front and back of house.
In National City, we'll have 4 food trucks. We need a lot of people right now.
This is our day. This is Labor Day. This is the day for union and the day for workers.
Some argue labor shortages are not because people don't want to work. It's because not everyone is offering a livable wage.
You know what? I think what will change it if you pay people what it's worth and if you give them a health care plan. Our grocery stores that have really good quality health care, we don't have a big shortage over there.
While pandemic unemployment benefits are going away, $600 state stimulus checks are heading to Californians making $75,000 a year or less. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The top movie in America right now is a superhero film brought to the big screen by an SDSU grad. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando recently caught up with the creative force behind Marvel's Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings.
In 2002, I showed Destin Cretton's first student film, Long Branch, A Suburban Parable, and then watched his talent mature with Bartholomew's Song, Deacon's Mondays, and his award-winning short term 12. With each film, he tried something new and displayed empathy for characters as they struggled to find connections and a place in the world. Now he's directed Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and he's challenged himself to make a superhero film with the kind of characters he didn't really see when he was young.
There wasn't a lot of just Asian American representation that felt like my friends, that felt like me. And so we wanted to contribute that to the MCU. We wanted a character, or we wanted our Shang-Chi to really feel like me and my friends and be relatable to anybody who is American, whether you're Asian American or whatever ethnicity you are.
You have the wrong guy. Does he look like he can fight? Come on, bro.
Like you and me, but with a little extra.
And if anything, when you walk out of this theater, I hope, whether consciously or subconsciously, you will be much less likely to say all Asians are the same.
But delivering the first Asian superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe came with a lot of responsibility for the Maui native.
I've gone through my process of really stressing out about that responsibility, of really carrying the weight, maybe a little too much to where I was unhealthily stressed about it. But I do think that that amount of stress was helpful to get this story to the place where it is, where I feel very proud of what we're putting out into the world.
Part of the challenge involved how to depict Shang-Chi's father.
We were up against a lot with this character because he, in the comics, there's a lot of baggage around him. Initially in the comics, Shang-Chi's dad was a very problematic character named Fu Manchu, who was in a lot of ways just an epitome of an Asian stereotype.
A stereotype he broke by casting Tony Leung.
What I thought was, by saying Tony Leung is the type of actor that we need to get for this role, defined what that character needed to be. Even though he is technically the villain of our movie and he does do some very bad things, the root of those bad things is love. It's misguided love. It's the pain that comes from losing somebody that you love.
The result is a more sympathetic and multidimensional character. In addition, the film gives us a lot to celebrate, from the great rapport between Simu Liu and Awkwafina, to spectacular action, to gorgeous production values. So go out and support not just a San Diego filmmaker's success story, but a step forward for Asians on screen and behind the camera. And here's a bit of trivia. If you had a wedding video shot in San Diego, Cretton might have made it.
I did a lot of wedding videos in order to just pay the bills.
How's that for an origin story? Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And we end the show with the latest from the KPBS Summer Music Series. Sonido de la Frontera is a group that embodies the spirit of our diverse border region. They're one of the many local acts that you can stream on the KPBS YouTube page. And for all of us here at KPBS, thank you for watching.
Métele rock, métele rock, métele guaguancó, métele chu, métele gua, métele chango, métele amor, métele paz, métele revolución, métele sabor, 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 métele roots, métele rock, métele guaguancó, métele chu, métele gua, métele chango, métele amor, métele paz, métele revolución, métele sabor, 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 sabor.
My name's Carlos Paez of the B-Side Players, Sonido La Frontera, and we got Luke Henshaw, Burst Power, Planet B, and DJ Unite, Tribe of Kings. First Power Crew.
Our cumbia, as Carlos says in one of our first singles, is cumbia diferente. We use a lot of the music that influences us, especially where we've grown up in our city of San Diego. And a lot of those mesh together to create a cumbia vibe, you know, with all sorts of extra seasonings on top of it. The cumbia vibe is something that we're drawn to because of the infectious rhythms, the danceability of it, and the way that it just makes people feel good, because that's what we want our music to do. We want you to feel good when you hear our rhythms and the music and the lyrics, and we want you to have a positive feeling from it. We were playing in places like Logan Heights before it had its full renaissance, and we were setting up at places like Bolsalta, backyard party style things out there before there was a total resurgence in Logan Heights. We've been able to play at a lot of different types of shows. Some shows, you know, at places where they wouldn't expect our vibe, and, you know, sometimes we're introducing cumbia music to people for the first time.